Donald Trump said, and I quote, "There are very fine people on both sides. My God." That's what he said.
But that's what happened last night, the first of many lies. Now, last night, Joe Biden's speech, which happened really late in the evening, was full of lies. And I mean a ton of lies. And somehow the fact checkers missed them all. So we want to give you a good review of the misrepresentations, lies, and just outright damnable absurdities that Joe Biden tried to inflict on the audience at the United Center and whoever else was still awake watching on television. And it's a good reminder of exactly why he lost the presidential election to Donald Trump in July instead of the old-fashioned way in November. First, though, a really heartwarming moment. His own daughter, Ashley Biden, introduced him on stage. And I want you to see it because it's a really, really tender, heartwarming moment. The love of a daughter and her father here. Because, you know, the Biden family, they're just an all-American family. And so here's Ashley Biden with the intro.
I have this memory. It's the eve of my 8th birthday.
Wait. No, let's not. Ashley, get her off the stage. We know how this story ends. We read the book. We are not interested in hearing that story. What is she thinking? Did they not vet this ahead of time? Oh, thank God it was on at midnight. Woo! Dang. All right, that was a close one. Now that Ashley's done and off the stage, let's get to Joe Biden. We'll start with this lie.
When the president was asked what he thought had happened, Donald Trump said, and I quote, "There are very fine people on both sides. My God." That's what he said.
Of course, that's not what he said. And even Snopes, as you can see in the cutout there, has fact-checked this as false. He's talking about Nazis and white supremacists in Charlottesville. And Joe Biden just maintained to the audience who believes it, of course, because they bought into this lie. They're so far in that they can't retreat, that he said of neo-Nazis and white supremacists that they are very fine people. When, of course, Donald Trump literally, specifically said the opposite. He said, "I'm not talking about neo-Nazis and white nationalists." But this is who Joe Biden is. And the lies aren't working anymore. They've stopped working. Kamala Harris will probably keep repeating this lie over and over again. They can't stop. But that's what happened last night, the first of many lies.
That is what he said and what he meant. That's when I realized, had listened to the admonition of my dead son, I could not stay in the sidelines. So I ran.
He has been telling that lie since the day he ran for office in 2019. In fact, the announcement video was all about Charlottesville and all about the very fine people on both sides. Think about it. His entire political career and this entire presidency and the campaign and decision to run for the presidency was based on a lie, was based on a complete and total fraudulent lie. But he wasn't done. He also repeated this lie.
He's promising a bloodbath if he loses, in his words. He's promising a bloodbath if he loses, in his words.
Now, you're a viewer of this program, so you already know that he didn't promise a bloodbath if he loses. What he did was say that Wall Street would undergo a bloodbath if he loses. That's what he said. Donald Trump did not promise a bloodbath. He predicted an economic bloodbath. Bloodbath is a term that's used all the time in financial circles. We know that. It's been debunked widely for months now. But you see, when you're Joe Biden, and any Democrat really, you can repeat the same lies over and over again with impunity, and nobody's going to do anything and nobody's going to say anything. You know you can get away with it. He's got the media in his back pocket, and that includes the fact checkers. So he just keeps lying and lying. Here's one more.
Then I had to take executive action. The result of the executive action I took, border encounters have dropped over 50%. In fact, there are fewer border crossings today than when Donald Trump left office. Then I had to take executive action.
That is also a lie. Every fact checker that dares to take a look at the data will tell you that no, there are not fewer border crossings than before Donald Trump left office. In fact, it's still astronomical. But again, he'll lie and he'll continue to lie. And that's what he does. All right, back to the aforementioned suckers and losers lie. I mean, there's so many of these lies that they keep repeating. But Joe Biden went there last night, so let's get to it.
He called them suckers and losers. Who in the hell does he think he is? Who does he think he is?
Oh, are you feeling the joy with the shaking of the fist and the screaming? This, of course, is the damnable lie put forth by Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic that Donald Trump referred to people in a military cemetery as suckers and losers. And Joe Biden repeats this one all the time, too, right after he talks about how his uncle was eaten by cannibals during World War II. Have they fact-checked that one yet? Let's watch Joe Biden get exercised about this again, because I have a theory about this one.
He called them suckers and losers. Who in the hell does he think he is? Who does he think he is?
He gets more worked up about this one than any of the other lies that he tells about Donald Trump. And I've got a theory about that. You see, Joe Biden didn't serve. And in fact, he joined the political party that opposed the Vietnam War when he decided that he was going to run for office in the late 60s, early 70s. He had a choice, and he chose to be a Democrat. That was the party that opposed the civil rights legislation of the mid-60s. Oh, I know Lyndon Johnson signed it, but it wouldn't have passed without a vast number of Republicans supporting it in the Senate and the House. It was the Democrats who opposed the civil rights bill, and Joe Biden proactively decided that he wanted to join that party. He also joined the party that opposed the Vietnam War, even though it was the same party that escalated the Vietnam War under the aforementioned President Lyndon Johnson. But he joined the party that was known in 1970 and 1972 as the party of violent anti-military protests. Remember, they're the ones who were spitting on veterans when they came back from Vietnam. That's the party Joe Biden proactively joined when he decided to enter public life. That's the party who never showed any respect for our troops. And of course, since he never served, he didn't care. He didn't care until he realized that the tide had turned in America after the election of Ronald Reagan, and he brought back pride to our military and our armed services. That's when he convinced his son that if he really wanted to have a political career, his son should join the military. So late in his life, well, not late in his life, but not at your normal age that you would join the military, Beau Biden, already a lawyer, joined the reserves and became a JAG lawyer. He was a lawyer in Iraq during the war on terror. And of course, you know, he died prematurely of brain cancer as the Attorney General of Delaware. And I think Joe Biden somehow still connects his service in Iraq with his death. In fact, he says as much whenever he has the opportunity. He tries to pretend that he's a Gold Star father and that he lost his son in the war, because whenever he meets people who have, in fact, lost their sons or daughters in war due to some of his horrible decisions, by the way, he'll suddenly bring up his son, Beau, who did not die in war. But he still connects the two, and he brings it up all the time. And I think that he feels so much guilt about this that he reserves most of his anger of Donald Trump and the lies that he tells about them for this suckers and losers lie. That's why when he's supposed to be displaying joy at the convention, he was displaying this rage, white, hot rage with shaking fists and everything. Well, I could debunk the suckers and losers lie for you if you'd like, but I don't need to. Because earlier this month, Donald Trump debunked it himself personally, because he's kind of pissed off that Joe Biden keeps repeating it.
And he makes up stories. He said something about me that I stood over the graves of soldiers. Nobody loves the military more than me. Nobody. Nobody respects it. And nobody's treated it better. Nobody's done as much for the military as I have. But he said I stood over graves of soldiers. And I said, these people are suckers and losers. Think dead soldiers from World War I. I said this was a made-up deal from a magazine that's failing, Financial Disaster, by a guy that is a horrible radical left lunatic named Goldberg. They made up a story that I said this, and they put it out, and it's been going around for 3 years. And it's just like Russia, 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 Ukraine, 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 51 intelligence agents, that phony story, remember? The laptop is from Russia, they said. And they should be prosecuted for what they did. Okay, they should be prosecuted. Let's see what happens.
I do like that part. They should be prosecuted. Were they talking about the 51 intelligence officials who claimed the Hunter Biden laptop, lied about the Hunter Biden laptop and said that it was Russian disinformation? He said they should be prosecuted. And then he says, let's see what happens. I like that. Yeah, by the way, just to cut to the chase on the suckers and losers things, John Bolton, former national security advisor, who is a virulent anti-Trump person. He is, in fact, I think I don't know if he's endorsed Nikki Haley, or he did endorse Nikki Haley. I don't think he's endorsed Kamala Harris, but he's certainly not going to vote for Donald Trump. John Bolton is one of the most outspoken, never Trump people in Washington, D.C. But when this is supposed to have happened, the suckers and losers thing, John Bolton was Donald Trump's national security advisor. He was on Air Force One with him when this decision was made not to visit a World War I cemetery. He was party to the conversations. He heard all of it, and he said it never happened. He said it never happened. And frankly, John Bolton has every reason to lie about Donald Trump. So we've got the Charlottesville very fine people lie last night in Joe Biden's speech. We've got the bloodbath lie last night in Joe Biden's speech. We've got the suckers and losers lie last night in Joe Biden's speech. Oh, we've got the border crossings lie last night in Joe Biden's speech. And there's more.
And Americans are safer today than under Donald Trump. Trump continues to lie about crime in America.
America is safer today than it was under Donald Trump. Violent crime is way up in America. And they keep throwing out this lie that violent crime is going down. But what they don't tell you is major American cities are not reporting their crime statistics to the FBI. And so the FBI is just estimating what the crime. Do you know that the FBI crime statistics that these people are quoting right now to convince you that violent crime is down does not include violent crime in New York City? Think about that for a minute. If you were to make a list of the cities that you had to gather violent crime statistics from so that you could get a good picture of violent crime in America, would New York be number one on the list or number one on the list? And yet the FBI statistics that you're hearing about all the time when they brag that violent crime is down literally has no data from New York. So lies, 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 lies. You want another lie? Oh, this is my favorite lie of them all.
Well, during the pandemic, Kamala and I helped states and cities get back their schools back open. Well,
during the pandemic, it was Kamala and Joe Biden who got schools open. Actually, during the 2020 election cycle in September and October, Betsy DeVos, as Secretary of Education with President Trump, was imploring states and school systems to open again that fall. They were begging them to open. It was Democrats and Democrat governors in particular who refused to open the schools. And the teachers union, the number one funder of the Democratic Party and the Biden campaign apparatus, that stood in the way of schools being open. Even after he was elected, they stood in the way of schools being open. His CDC was taking memos from Randy Weingarten, the president of the second largest teachers union, asking her for guidance on when schools should open or not. And he dares this? Are you kidding me?
During the pandemic, Kamala and I helped states and cities get back their schools back open.
You didn't help Florida open because Florida was already open, because they didn't listen to you. And a whole handful of other states led by Republicans. In fact, only states led by Republicans were still open. You want more lies? We've got more lies. This may be the best. last night.
Including the IBW installing 500,000 charging stations all across America.
Now, that was a twofer because he mentioned the IBEW, that's the International Brotherhood of Electric Workers, because they were all part of the whole Green New Deal thing. You ask yourself, why are union guys, blue-collar guys who like their F-150s, why are they on board with the Green New Deal? Jobs. That's why. They don't care. So the International Brotherhood of Electric Workers were the ones who were lined up with the Green New Deal, which, by the way, isn't the Green New Deal. I thought it was the Inflation Reduction Act, except it actually increased inflation. So now they're going back and calling it a climate change bill. They were the ones who were on board to get all of those jobs that were lined up to install 500,000 new charging stations around the country. Yeah, and it was only going to cost $7.5 billion. But boy, all those jobs and all those charging stations, right?
Including the IBW installing 500,000 charging stations all across America.
Yeah, I believe it's not 500,000. It's a little bit less than that. A bit less. I believe they've got 7 charging stations installed now, which is about $1 billion apiece. That's not bad. I mentioned that none of this got fact-checked at the major cable outlets or the networks. They're Johnny on the spot fact-checking Donald Trump whenever they have the opportunity. But I mentioned this didn't get fact-checked. But that's not entirely true. Daniel Dale, the erstwhile fact-checker over there on CNN, who looks a lot like Pete Buttigieg, by the way, he did jump on board. What time is this? 10 minutes till 1 in the morning. Amazing. They brought him on to do a bit of a fact check. And so when I say none of that got fact checked, I'm being accurate. It's true. None of what I just showed you, all of those damnable lies that are meant specifically to divide this country and to call Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's political opponents racists who hate the military. None of that got fact checked. But Daniel Dale, he did jump on board with a couple of fact checks. Let's take a look at what he had.
Guess let's start with the president. What did you make of it?
There were certainly some false or misleading claims there, especially on the subject of the economy. I want you to listen to something he said on the subject of U.S. imports and exports.
We used to import products and export jobs. Now we export American products and create American jobs right here in America, where jobs belong.
This claim is misleading, Jake. U.S. exports of goods have increased under President Biden. So far, so good with that claim. But contrary to the other part of that claim, we are still importing a whole lot of stuff, too. What he didn't mention is that U.S. imports have increased during his presidency. Increased, not decreased. In fact, increased by more than exports have increased. So therefore, the trade deficit in goods has increased under President Biden, not declined, as this claim suggested. It was over $1 trillion in each of his first 3 years in office. It had never hit that level before. I also want to...
Okay, so Daniel Dale found a lie about the trade imbalance with China. It was misleading, he said. A little misleading. Sure, we've got some more exports, but we're importing even more, so the trade deficit is even bigger. But that's misleading. Well, that would not be misleading. That would be a lie, Daniel. Not misleading, an absolute lie. But then he found one more.
Play something else he said on the subject of the economy and the budget. This is something he said about billionaires and tax rates.
We have 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what their average tax rate they pay? 8.2%.
I've called this misleading before. It's still misleading. An expert at the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center has told me this number is, quote, way too low. Now, he said the average federal tax rate for billionaires is 8.2%. What he doesn't explain is that that number is not an actual tax rate. What it is an alternative calculation from economists in his own administration that factors in unrealized capital gains that are not actually treated as taxable income.
Yeah, okay. It's now 12:52 Eastern time, and as everyone is listening to this fact check about the actualized gains on investment and the tax rate that billionaires pay, everyone is now drooling on their pillow, passed out, because all Daniel Dale could find in that entire vitriolic, divisive fraudulent speech from our angry, vitriolic, fraudulent president was something about the trade imbalance and corporate tax rates. Daniel Dale was fine with the lie about Charlottesville, fine with the lie about suckers and losers, fine with the lie about bloodbath. He was fine with the lie about border crossings. He was fine with the lie about violent crime statistics. He was fine with the lie about 500,000 new charging stations. But boy, you better get the numbers right on the trade imbalance, folks. See? I'm an equal opportunity fact checker. I'm Daniel Dale. Good night, everybody.